You know that feeling, right? When you're telling a story about something that happened to you and it feels like the words just don't capture the feeling. Maybe you describe a huge, painful event in a really calm, almost detached way. Or you do the opposite. You spin this dramatic, super detailed story about a pretty minor annoyance. Well, that gap, the space between what we feel inside and the stories we tell, it's a totally universal human thing.
So that's the big question, isn't it? Why is there so often a mismatch? Is it a mistake? Are we just bad at communicating? Or, and this is where it gets really interesting, what if something much more deliberate is going on? Let's dig into what a group of researchers found out. So these researchers took on this puzzle, but they came at it with a fascinating twist. Instead of looking at this feeling-telling gap as some kind of error or a bug in our system, they thought, hey, what if this is actually a really important signal? A clue, that shows how we actively manage and present our inner emotional worlds to everyone else.
Now, to study this, they first had to be able to measure it, so they gave it a proper scientific name: narrative affect discrepancy. It's basically a fancy way of saying they found a way to quantify that gap, the gap between how complex a story is, its structure and detail, and the raw emotional power of the words used to tell it.
And to measure it, they needed data. I mean, a lot of data. Get this, they analyzed over 350,000 real anonymous stories that people posted online about their relationships. I mean, that is a massive scale. And it lets us see these huge patterns in human expression that have, frankly, never been visible before.
So how they actually analyze each and every one of those stories? Well, think of it like an emotional dashboard with two main dials. The first dial is narrative complexity. This measures how structured the story is. Does it have cause and effect, deep reflections, that kind of thing. The second dial is affective magnitude, and that one just measures the raw emotional punch of the words, from super negative all the way to super positive. That gap between where the two dials are set, that's exactly what they're looking at.
And this quote from the lead researcher just nails the core finding. The gap isn't an accident, it's a choice. We are constantly editing how much of our inner world we let other people see and how we package it. We're not just experiencing emotions, we are the editors of our own emotional visibility.
And what's really cool is that this editing isn't random at all. The research uncovered 4 very distinct strategies that we all use to manage the relationship between our stories and our feelings. So let's walk through them. First up, we've got the coupled strategy. This is the most straightforward one, the one you'd probably expect. The 2 dials on our dashboard, they're perfectly aligned. A super emotional event gets a complex, detailed story. A minor thing gets a simple, quick mention. The story and the feeling are totally in sync.
Okay, next is strategy number 2, strategic understatement. Now here's where those dials get deliberately mismatched. You've got an event with a massive emotional charge, say a terrible loss, but you tell the story using a really simple, almost clinical narrative. It's a powerful way to keep control, right? To protect yourself from getting overwhelmed or feeling too exposed.
The third strategy is the total flip side, strategic overstatement. This is when you take something with a pretty low emotional charge, like a small disagreement, and you build this incredibly complex, detailed narrative all around it. This can be a way to signal to others that, hey, this is actually important to me, or maybe to get some support by making it sound like a bigger deal than it felt.
And finally, there's what they call the collapse strategy. This is what happens when the emotional intensity is just too much. Our ability to build a coherent story literally breaks down. The raw feeling completely swamps the narrative structure, and what comes out is fragmented, disorganized, and simple.
Okay, so we have this rich, complex landscape of human emotion, with 4 distinct ways we tell our stories. Now get ready for the big plot twist. The researchers then asked, what happens when you give the same task to a state-of-the-art large language model? How does an AI navigate this same emotional territory?
The results are, wow, they're just stunning. This chart shows what the researchers call expressive volume, basically the size of the emotional toolbox. And just look at the difference. Humans have this enormous expressive range, easily jumping between all 4 strategies. The AI, on the other hand, is, well, it's stuck in a tiny little box.
And when you put a number on it, it's just staggering. The AI's expressive range is 4.5 times smaller than ours. That is a massive contraction. The AI is pretty much stuck using only one strategy, keeping the story and the feeling perfectly coupled. It completely avoids the strategic under- and overstatements that are so fundamental to how we humans actually talk to each other.
There's a name for this phenomenon: normative collapse.
Because these AI models are trained to be helpful and appropriate, they learn to steer clear of expressive extremes. They basically collapse their entire emotional range into this narrow, safe, tidy middle ground. And in doing so, they treat any big gap between story and feeling as an error that needs to be fixed.
Seeing the AI's limitations really throws a spotlight on this incredible human skill, which the researchers call affective sovereignty. This is our ability to be the editors of our own emotions. It's our freedom to choose which strategy to use, to understate our pain to keep our dignity, or to overstate a point to make sure we're heard. It's this flexible power to use the entire emotional toolkit.
So why does any of this matter? Well, because the tools we use to communicate literally shape how we think and feel. We humans use that feeling-telling gap for really good reasons, to protect ourselves, to signal our needs, to connect. But if our AI tools are working from a collapsed, flattened emotional model, they might start to suddenly treat our perfectly healthy, normal strategies as problems to be fixed. It risks teaching us that there's only one right way to express ourselves, and that just flattens the very nuance that makes us human.
And that really leaves us with a final, crucial question to chew on. As we bring these powerful AI systems deeper and deeper into our lives, as our therapists, our coaches, our companions, what happens when the very tools we're building to connect with each other don't actually speak our full emotional language?